Hi everyone, my name is Heather Hanslick and I'm happy to share this brief presentation on climate change and humans. Climate change simply refers to changes that occur long-term in weather patterns and temperatures. There are many ways that these changes affect life. Agencies such as NASA, the NOAA, and the UK's Climatic Research Unit are just three of the leading resources gathering data from around the globe and throughout the multi-layered atmosphere. Their combined data show that despite short-term fluctuations of cooling periods, Earth is following a long-term warming trend. Human activity, in particular our contribution to carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, are rapidly increasing this trend, which is leading to extreme weather patterns amongst other hardships for life to adapt to. Climate change can affect a person's health by changing the frequency of health problems that people already face, as well as creating new problems. Some examples of this include asthma complications from increased heat, wildfire pollution, as well as other pollutants. Allergies are increasing due to longer bloom seasons, and illnesses related account for over 13 million US doctor visits each year. Sinus infections are leading to a drastic increase in brain infections amongst US cases 17 years and younger. Respiratory disease increases from heat, which impedes on heart health. One of the most prominent increases of illnesses simply stems from becoming overheated, and I'll touch more on this later, but something that I find both alarming and interesting is the increase of mental health cases, particularly amongst youth. And there are several reasons for this incline, but evidence is suggesting that an increase in certain pollutants and allergens leading to poor air quality is impeding on normal development of the central nervous system in children and increasing depression and anxiety in children and adults alike. Before I get into how heat relates to an increase in violent crime, I'd like to point out some of the climate change indicators taken from the United States Environmental Protection Agency data. In Figure 1, you can see how the ragweed pollen seasons have increased in length throughout the center of the US and into the north, where you would generally expect cooler weather to adverse these increases. Below, in Figure 2, you can see an increase in the average rate of heat-related hospitalizations in 23 states. I live in the state of Tennessee and have recently become a statistic of heat-related illness. In a later presentation, I will get into the specifics of why Tennessee is becoming such a hot state, but I'd now like to address how heat related to an increase in violent crime. An increase in temperature affects thoughts and behaviors. While the body tries to remain in homeostasis, the brain diverts resources and is not running at full capacity. This affects a person's ability to process information and control emotions. People who are hot have an increased ability to engage in a hostile confrontation. Iowa State University researchers and co-authors Dr. Craig A. Anderson and Andreas Miles Novello found that hotter regions in the US and around the world have higher rates of violent crime. In the US, murder, rape, and assault rates have been higher during hotter days, months, seasons, and years. According to an article in the Southwest Journal by Kane Dane on May 24, 2023, Tennessee, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, South Carolina, and Delaware are 6 of the top 10 most violent states in the US, all of which are part of the average rate of heat-related hospitalization increases from the EPA statistic that I related in my former slide. So let's take a look at some of the statistics in Chicago from 2011. This top figure shows temperatures throughout the year for 2011, and of course you can see how it elevates in the summer and also the various spikes that it has. This bottom figure shows the crime rate for that same year, and this is also by month. And there is a direct correlation between temperature and violent behavior. One of the most interesting spikes takes place from September to early October. You will note that people or youth are back in school during that time, and so we can't really use that as a factor in the increase of a summer break. Let's see. So as I began to study and understand climate change, it became apparent how intertwined we all are as a human race on a global scale from an economic standpoint. It becomes difficult to remain as segregated as we have become in a world that is transitioning physically at an inflated rate, and therefore I have a mix of international and national effects under both topics of natural and global economies. The gross domestic product is a measure of the U.S. economic activity. It accounts for the value of final goods and services produced in the United States. According to data from the World Bank, the U.S. is currently the world's largest economy with a GDP over 23 trillion in 2021. But China, followed by India, are expected to dominate the world's economy by 2050. So how is climate change expected to factor into these economic projections? Temperature has been found to affect agricultural yields along with the cognitive and physical abilities of workers, and it imposes a demand for energy. In the American Economic Journal, Macroeconomics for number 3 of January 2012, Melissa Dell, Benjamin Jones, and Benjamin Olken discuss by one account how an average temperature rise of 1 degree Celsius in a given country and year caused per capita income to fall by, on average, 1.4%. After the temperature shock resolved, the financial effect persisted, and studies indicate that countries with cooler weather will end up becoming agricultural producers when it becomes too hot for growth in current locations. The economic models for the 21 countries exporting coal, petroleum, and natural gas as their primary financial means will have to be changed as countries around the world are transitioning to zero carbon economies. Droughts, fires, rising sea levels, hurricanes, and tornadoes are already making a strong economic impact from changing climate. According to an article from Columbia Climate School by Renee Cho in June of 2019, Morgan Stanley Financial stated that climate disasters had cost North America $415 billion in just the preceding 3 years, most as a result from wildfires and hurricanes. I briefly mentioned energy earlier, but one of the main reasons that these costs will increase globally is due to our transition to renewables. Not only will our living and working environments require more energy to sustain comfortable conditions due to the extreme temperature changes, our means for that energy will become different. We can expect a transition period where we will see an increase in taxes for fossil fuel usage. Insurance companies are taking the science-based evidence seriously, and State Farm, for one, will no longer be insuring California homes for wildfire damage. Inflation is likely to keep rising over time as food sources shift with global crop yields. Developing countries will absorb much of the loss and experience the most adverse effects as they generally rely on agriculture and tourism for revenue. Capital stock and productivity in the world economy will likely be reduced by climate change. Keith Wade, chief economist and strategist, along with economist Marcus Jennings from Schroders multinational asset management company, supplied these figures in a recent talking point. Figure 1 shows a fall in the productive capacity of the world economy due to the lack of available capital stock caused from damage inflicted from climate change. This analysis is based on the lack of response by the world's population toward climate change. So this is what it could look like without immediate response on a global scale. Each labor unit produces less output. In figure 2, as you can see, the world supply curve shifts backwards. It drives a lower level output and will increase prices. There are many other ways that climate will infringe on life, including the increase of infectious disease. However, there are many ways to mitigate the effects of climate change. It's a topic that needs to be at the forefront of our discussions and our actions. Thank you so much for your time. Here are my references, and I wish you all well. Thank you.